This video is a quick overview of how the Spring Security works. So it's a quick connect the dots on how everything integrates and where things come from. So I'm in the web XML. There are two things that a Java web application really consists of. One of them are filters, and then the other one is the servlet. And the servlet is typically what is used to handle all types of requests that come in for an application. They do the bulk of the lifting. The one thing that we do use within IBIS is a mechanism that's called filters, and filters are a way to either pre or post process a request that goes to a servlet. And so naturally the security fits this model very well because it intercepts the request before it actually goes to the servlet and has a chance to verify that the user is authorized and can actually make that request. So I'm going to show you that real quick. Here in the web XML, here's the definition. We have standard filters which are used for other things, but the security filters are defined with this filter definition right here. And you'll notice it has a name. It's called security filters, and then it references a mapping down here. It's called security filters, and it basically says every request that we make, that's what the asterisk means on this URL pattern. It means any request that's made to this application will have to go through something that's called security filters. Now, back up here on the security filter definition, it references a Spring delegating filter proxy. And part of the configuration of this guy is a param that gets passed to it of the bean name, and that's the name of our Spring bean that actually contains our filter chain proxy. So based on the name, I know that if I look at my Spring bean file that's named security.xml, I'm going to find a definition named that. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go over to my security XML file here, and I'm going to look for that proxy. And there it is right at the top of the file. And what this thing does is this thing calls a series of other filter chains. And this is just a series of filters that do various things. So if I go look for these chains, and by the way, this list needs to be listed in most specific to least specific. So I'm going to look here at this filter chain, which is for query results. Actually, I'm going to show you just the normal security filter chain. So I'm going to look at this filter chain right here. And this is just going to be a quick walkthrough of how things work. So it has a URL pattern. So it says that the request has to match something that starts with secure, and anything after that is going to go through this chain. So the first thing it does is it handles these first filters here are filters that you really don't need to worry yourself about. They're standard. They are just the mechanism for how we persist if the user is not having it. It's a way so that the user doesn't have to log in for every time they make a secure request within that session. And it handles logouts and everything else. So the last one here is the one that you're going to be concerned with. This is the access interceptor filter. And so if I go down to the bottom of this file, I'll show you what that filter looks like. There's three components to this. It has a metadata source which contains further mappings to authorities. It contains an authentication manager which says, how am I going to authenticate this user? And within IBIS we have three current authentication mechanisms. We have the pre-auth or the SiteMinder one. We have the XML version. We have a database one. And you can actually have all three of those authentication mechanisms active at any one time. They can have a fallback. And then the last part of this interceptor filter is the Access Decision Manager, and it references a bean that's called Authorization Access Decision Manager. Now, let's go look at the definition of that Authorization Access Decision Manager. This is the definition. You'll notice here that it is a affirmative voter, and there's characteristics, and in the securitynotes.txt file I have lots of information about how all of the Spring Security works. Specifically, there's three different types, and I talk about those three different types right here. But back over to the security XML file. This is an affirmative voter. We say allow if all abstain decisions, so you can deny, you can abstain, or you can allow access. So this says it will allow even if all of the decisions of these voters turn out to be abstain votes. An abstain vote means you're not going to allow and you're not going to deny. You just don't know if you don't think that it applies to whatever it is that you're checking. That's what an abstinence vote is. So you'll see here there's two voters, and we use the authentication voter, and the authentication voter is simply this bean definition right up here, and there's nothing special about its configuration other than it is the Spring Standard Authentication voter, and then it uses an authorization roll voter. And again, this is another Spring class. And what these two voters do is they utilize the metadata source that's been supplied in the decision manager. Okay, so we have these decision managers, and the way they are supplied with that decision manager is actually with the interceptor filter. So if we go back down here to our secure access interceptor filter bean, which is the bean that's last called in that chain of filters for a secure request, you'll see here that it references this security metadata source that's called security secure metadata source. And this metadata source is consumed, it's injected into the authentication manager and the access decision manager. So let's go look at this secure metadata source real quick. That is this bean definition right here, and what it does is it has a series of URL requests to privileges that are needed. That's all it does. So this video is getting a little long. That's basically how the security part works. That's connecting all the dots. I'm going to do another video that talks more specifically about how you set up your security XML and what all the various combinations of things are and why you want to do certain, why you want to set things in a certain way. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to call or leave comments. As long as they are not nasty comments, they are accepted. Just kidding. Thanks.